Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about how General Motors is pulling back from their all-in on EV stance. Before we get in this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below, and if you want to see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post videos every single day. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into General Motors backpedaling from the all-in on EVs statement, let's talk about why it doesn't make sense for General Motors to go all-in on EVs. So first off, switching over your manufacturing processes from building internal combustion engine vehicles to EVs is absolutely enormous. Like, the costs are astronomical. And so that's the first thing that, doesn't really make sense for General Motors as a business. They're gonna have to spend a ton of money to get things set up to build these EVs because the manufacturing process is just a lot different. And then on top of that, the supply chains are significantly different. And we are currently in an environment where the EV supply chains are the most constrained. That's why EVs have gotten so expensive over the last couple of years. Yes, every vehicle has gone up in price, but EVs have gone up significantly more compared to other vehicles just because of how constrained these supply chains are. And so I understand that Tesla makes this all look really easy and they somehow are always able to turn a profit in today's world. But you have to remember, it took Tesla like over a decade to actually become profitable. And so these legacy automakers need to understand that. And it seems like they keep just buying into the hype and they don't understand that like they're probably going to have to spend the next 5 to 10 years not making any money on EVs, actually losing money on EVs, and then eventually they might become profitable. And so that's the first reason why it doesn't make sense for General Motors to jump all in on EVs at such a rapid rate. It's so expensive, and it's not going to be profitable for them for quite some time. And then the next big thing is, frankly, demand. Now, I know that EV demand is continuing to increase as time goes on. I mean, Tesla is a perfect example of that, right? When they first started making EVs, like nobody was buying EVs. But now, I mean, Tesla's literally selling like 1 million cars per year. And other automakers are obviously seeing this, including General Motors. And so they want a piece of that pie. However, what General Motors and all these companies need to understand is that the EV market is still centralized around wealthy buyers. And yes, as time goes on, there are going to be more and more wealthy buyers, unless we go into like an insanely large recession. It's not like that's going to happen anytime soon that would, diminish the amount of wealthy buyers. But anyways, that's a niche group, right? And so what these companies didn't understand is that Tesla is a luxury car company. They are not the everyman's electric car company. They are a luxury car company. When people are looking at a Tesla, they are cross-shopping it with Mercedes, BMW, Audi. They're not cross-shopping Teslas with Fords and Toyotas and General Motors products. And so being a luxury car, then that means that unless General Motors can basically attract luxury car buyers to buy their product, they're not going to sell nearly as many EVs as they expect because non-luxury buyers are still not in on the whole EV situation. And it's actually for a number of reasons. First off, charging infrastructure here in the US is absolute garbage. Again, Tesla has pretty good charging infrastructure, but like for the rest of us, it absolutely sucks. And so until the charging infrastructure is built up to where it can actually support more people on a regular basis, it just doesn't make sense for the average person. It means that, their daily driving is completely diminished with an electric vehicle because they just won't be able to charge like what they would want to do. Now, a lot of people might say, well, just charge at home. Well, here's the deal. That's easy for wealthy buyers that can afford to buy a house. But there's a large portion of the population here in the US, and it seems to be growing year by year, that doesn't own a home. And so that means that they won't have access to at-home charging, which means that they will have to purely rely on the infrastructure that is built out, the infrastructure that is talked about that is absolutely horrible. And so the point that I'm trying to make here is EVs are great for wealthy buyers that have the money to charge their car at home because they can afford to buy a home and they can afford to buy a charger at their house. Chargers are actually, not super expensive, but still, I mean, it's quite a bit of money to bring out an electrician, to upgrade your outlets, and then to also buy the charger itself. I mean, you're going to spend well over $1,000, and it seems like the average American doesn't usually have an extra $1,000 to spend on something. And so, like I said earlier, unless General Motors can attract more luxury buyers, there's not that much more pie compared to what they think there is. And then the next big thing that people seem to forget is that internal combustion engine vehicles are still extremely profitable for an automaker to produce. I know that everyone looks at Tesla and goes, hey, they are super profitable, this is what everyone should do, but here's the deal. Tesla sells their cars direct to consumer, and they've set up insane infrastructure to support everything, and so that's why they're able to be as profitable as they are. regular automakers can't do what Tesla does. They can't go direct to consumer, and they just don't have the infrastructure that Tesla has. And so even if, an automaker tried to mimic Tesla as closely as they could, they would not be nearly as profitable as Tesla because, again, they don't have those two things going for them, the infrastructure and the direct to consumer sales. And so with legacy automakers, their best bet is to actually continue to build internal combustion engine vehicles because that's where they're going to be able to make the profits. And this is something that Ford's admitted, and this is something that General Motors has also admitted as well, is that, these EVs are cool, but they're not profitable right now, and they probably won't be profitable for quite some time. And the only way that they are going to stay profitable as a company is if they continue to build internal combustion engine vehicles. And now that you guys realize why it doesn't make any sense for General Motors to go all in on EVs, you can see why General Motors is now backpedaling. Let's kind of talk about that. So just a few months ago, General Motors was basically saying, yep, all in on EVs, 2035, we are basically not going to sell any internal combustion engine vehicles. Whereas now they're not really talking about dates anymore in terms of when they're going to go all in on EVs. And on top of that, they're starting to say, hey, don't worry, we are still going to build internal combustion engine vehicles. We're still going to, redesign our internal combustion engine vehicles. And I mean, with the product we're getting over the next few years, it really shows because, we're getting new iterations on the Chevy Corvette, for example. We just got a, refreshed Chevy Blazer. We're going to get a new Chevy Traverse in the near future, GMC Acadia as well. The Equinox, we're getting a fully redesigned version of that. And again, the product is consistently changing. And Chevy Colorado, GMC Canyon, that's another good example. So the point that I'm trying to make here is General Motors is releasing a lot of new product on their ICE side of things, and they're also releasing statements to go along with this new product because they're saying, hey, wait, I understand that everyone's kind of freaked out that we're just no longer going to build these cars. They're saying, no, we are still going to build these cars because we understand that, well, not only are they profitable, but that is what a large portion of the market still wants to purchase. And so don't be shocked if you see General Motors, release a different official date for them to go all in on EVs, or if they just, like I said, what they're doing now, just stop mentioning a date. And if 2035 rolls around and General Motors is still building internal combustion engine vehicles. Now let's go over my thoughts on this whole subject, and I want to hit a few key points. The first thing is I do think that this is a move in the right direction for General Motors, kind of backpedaling from the all-in on EV statement, because it's just a huge mistake for General Motors. It doesn't make sense financially, and it doesn't make sense with where the market is at today or where the market will be at in the future. Obviously, nobody can predict the market, but I do want to kind of discuss that. But before I discuss that, I do want to talk about another mistake that I see General Motors making currently, and that's the fact that they aren't focusing on hybrids whatsoever. General Motors is trying to hop from internal combustion engine vehicles straight to electric vehicles. There's no in between. And the automakers that are starting to see a lot of success from going from internal combustion engine vehicles to electric vehicles are the ones that have a hybrid in the middle. Look at Toyota, right? Everyone's excited about any sort of electric vehicle that Toyota releases because they've had hybrids out for a while. And then if you look at Ford, Ford has had several hybrid models out for a while as well. We have, the F-150 Power Boost, you got the Ford Maverick hybrid. Those are kind of newer, but, we've had a hybrid powertrain in the Explorer for quite some time. And so that allows people to kind of, transition through. General Motors isn't doing this. And so they should probably, allocate some time, money, and energy into building some hybrid powertrains, because with a lot of their vehicles, they would frankly sell really well, especially in today's market, and especially with where the costs would be at with these hybrids. Because if you look at an internal combustion engine vehicle, it's going to be the cheapest option. Hybrid is going to be, the next step up in terms of pricing, and then EVs are always going to be the most expensive because they're the most expensive to engineer, they're the most expensive to produce, and the materials that go into them are also going to always be the most expensive. Well, I shouldn't say always, but currently are the most expensive. And so with hybrids, they kind of bridge the gap in terms of affordability, but then also they're kind of in between with EVs. And so, if General Motors was watching this video, for some reason, what I would tell them is build some hybrids, Equinox hybrid, Traverse hybrid. Those vehicles would sell amazingly well. And if they could figure out how to pair their little Duramax diesel with a hybrid and put that in a pickup truck, that would just completely, the amount that they would be able to sell with that powertrain would be so ridiculous, huge missed opportunity. And then the other thing that I quickly want to touch base on is the fact that General Motors and other companies are starting to realize that the market is not going to shift nearly as quickly as they think. And this is just logical. If you go and look at like a magazine or a movie from like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and they were guessing what we were going to have in terms of transportation today, they're probably guessing flying cars and, alien powered propulsion, whatever it may be. But if you look at cars today, they still have gas engines, they still have four wheels, and they're still on the ground, right? Things don't progress nearly as quickly as, people think they're going to progress. And so the people that are legislating these big changes within the automotive industry and the automakers themselves, they think that, we're basically going to be in a completely different car market in the next 10 to 15 years. But in reality, what's most likely going to happen is, yes, there is going to be more EV adoption, because I'm sure that the costs associated with producing EVs will come down as time goes on. And then the charging infrastructure will surely improve. And so you'll have more and more people go to the EV route because it makes sense. But, I can't guarantee this, but if I were to guess, I would say that, 2035 will roll around, 2040 will roll around, and you'll see a lot of EVs on the road, but you also see a lot of hybrids. And frankly, I'm sure you'll still see internal combustion engine vehicles, just because of, again, the cost associated with each of the vehicles and, what you can use all of the vehicles for as well. And so I think that the best thing for a legacy automaker to do, like General Motors, is to just, focus on what's selling right now, which is internal combustion engine cars, and then, build out some EVs and build out some hybrids as well, and, start things going in those two directions. But don't try to like completely reform your company around, a completely new way of, propelling a vehicle, because the market's just not there yet. The adoption will happen, but it's going to take a lot longer than everyone realizes. That's going to sum things up for today's video. Let me know what you think about this topic with General Motors going all in on EVs, or rather pulling back from going all in on EVs. Do you think that this is a move in the right direction? What do you think General Motors should do to really, improve things with their overall business model and, with the vehicles they're selling, all that kind of stuff? Anyways, I'll see you guys.